You may be surprised to find out that I do have a very detailed workout and lifting log. I can
Oh, I'm very detail oriented. I have a log and a pocket protector to secure all my writing utensils.
that's a very good Justin Lesko impression.
Yeah.
I'm Justin Lesko, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt and a former pro MMA fighter.
And I'm Mike Callahan, a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu brown belt and a law enforcement officer.
Last episode, we talked all about New Year's resolutions and goals.
And on this episode, we're going to be talking a little bit more specifically about how you can set goals in Jiu Jitsu and work towards achieving those goals.
And we'll give you some good ideas for goals that aren't just get my black belt or tap Gordon Ryan.
I don't think anybody's going to be able to achieve that goal.
Well, a goal everyone can accomplish is to look as good as we do in a rash guard.
Yeah, and all you have to do is head over to crownrashguards.com and check out their full supply of rash guards. They're durable, they're affordable, and they're minimalist.
And if you bundle 2 rash guards together, you can look double as good for only $34.50 a rash guard.
Meaning that if one of your resolutions for 2021 was to save money, you're knocking that one out too.
It's like a built-in New Year's resolution.
It's a new year and you got new goals, so why not try to accomplish them in the best rash guards possible? So head on over to crownrashguards.com and be sure to let them know that we sent you.
Let's get right into it. Welcome to That Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. So we talked about New Year's resolutions, and then I was watching The Office, which is now on Peacock, which we get Peacock for free. Otherwise, I wouldn't pay for it.
Yeah, first of all, seriously, we get it for free too. What, are they just giving it to everybody for free?
If you have Comcast, you get it for free. I don't know about other places.
For how long? Is it just free?
I don't know. It just was on there. And then Pam Beasley told me that most people abandon their New Year's resolutions by February. And it was on The Office, so I'm going to assume that that's true and factual.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Pam Beasley's not a liar. Unless she lies to Roy. Anyway.
Or she lies to herself, because we all know for seasons 1 and 2,
and
she really shouldn't have been with Roy.
And the majority of season 3. So, yeah, there we go. Well, we're not quite to February yet, but...
So hopefully if you've made New Year's resolutions, people have stuck to them thus far. But I thought it'd be a good idea to look at some ways you can go wrong in goals, and goals that we've had that we maybe fell short of, and look at why and how we could have been better about them.
Right, yeah.
And then we can look at some like jiu-jitsu specific goals that would be fun for anyone or for us ourselves to work towards. But can you think of any goals off the top of your head that you had in your jiu-jitsu or professional life that you missed?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it comes down to like maybe not achieving goals to the level that you want. Like in jiu-jitsu, I've competed. I haven't won tournaments that I've competed in, so like I've come up short on those goals. But I always set, like, if I'm going to compete in a tournament, like I'll set the goal of like becoming as prepared as possible going into that. So it's a matter of like setting an adequate training schedule, setting an adequate nutrition plan, just making sure that I'm doing everything to get like properly prepared. So that in itself is a goal. And then obviously like your goal is to do as well as you can at the tournament.
Well, that was going to be one of the goals that I would say you have accomplished. Was there's been tournaments where you've had the date like, all right, I'm doing this tournament in 2 months, and you've treated it like a fight camp. Like you go all in and work super hard in preparation for that tournament.
Yeah, so I mean, like for me too, and I feel like this was the last time I did Fight to Win. I feel like this was a big thing. I was so focused on my cardio, right? So I was going 100 miles per hour during training. Then we were doing our, we were doing our cardio sessions after training and everything, like in my mind, I wanted to push the pace on that dude for 7 minutes. Like I wanted to break him in 7 minutes. And looking back on it now, it was like, it's 7 minutes. Like even a regular training camp, even a specific, or not even a event specific training regimen. If you're just training regularly, you can do 7 minutes standing on your head, or it might have been 8 minutes, but you can do that standing on your head.
Yeah.
You go to these IBJJF tournaments, you're doing 6, 7 matches of 8, 9, 10 minutes, and you're getting maybe 10, 15 minutes in between. So I get caught up in that a lot. And I think that when I finally make the decision to compete again, the approach needs to change. I think that it needs to be a balanced approach where, cardio, there has to be a cardio aspect of it, because you don't want to go in there out of shape. But at the same time, it needs to be balanced to the point where you're focusing, if you know who your opponent is, if you know who the guy you're fighting is, then, see if you can get a better understanding of his game so you can, have a game plan going in. And if you don't, you just need to hone your skills. And that includes, maybe not going 100 miles per hour every single day. That includes drilling sessions and just trying to expand your game a little bit more, which I think I haven't done that in the past.
Well, I think it's again, I think it's being specific in like it's part of it is you have a long-term goal of in 8 weeks I want to win this match, but there's has to be like contributing framework goals that go into that. So if you're worried about your cardio, you need to work to improve that, but you
Right.
can't it shouldn't just be my goal is to have good cardio for this match. And you have to also be able to measure your goal. Like if someone just says generically in 2021 my goal is to be better at jiu-jitsu. Well, that's really hard to measure and it's
Right.
really hard to track whether or not you're succeeding or you're not succeeding. And I think you need to, and again, I'm saying you, but I'm not meaning like you, Mike Callahan.
Yeah.
Like I think you as the general person needs to have a goal that you can say, I want to get better so that I win this tournament, or I want to get better so that I feel a certain way at a certain time. Like there needs to be a time component and it needs to be measurable. And if you don't have that, it's really hard to know whether or not you're succeeding.
The other thing too is like I remember this was probably 7, 8 years ago now. Like Lloyd Irvin had that house. I think he called it the jungle. They set measurable goals, but for them they were reasonable and realistic. For the average person, they weren't. Like if I remember, like if they had a technique, they wanted to drill it 10,000 times. Like that's fucking crazy, But again, it's realistic and it's reasonable for them and it's measurable. So if you're going to set a goal that you can measure, make sure that it's reasonable. Make sure that you don't put any unnecessary pressure or stress on yourself while you're trying to accomplish it. You know what I mean? Because the average person who is going to try to do 10,000 reps of one technique is going to drive themselves fucking crazy, because that's like 4 fucking hours of drilling, or
Yeah.
five, more
And
than
if
that.
you like we have kids and full-time jobs. I can't spend 4 hours drilling scissor sweeps. I
Yeah,
just can't. So I might set that goal for myself that this year I want to do 10,000 scissor sweeps every week. It's not like I'm setting myself up for failure. And then you discourage yourself from the bigger picture of doing jujitsu and competing
right.
and getting better. And I think you're right. I think if it's not realistic, there's a difference between setting a goal that your goal should be a little bit outside of what you think you can do. Because if you just set a goal of like, oh, I want to go to jujitsu 1 time a week this year, you're already doing that. That's not difficult. But
Right.
if you make it 3 times a week, it's a little outside of what you feel capable of doing. That's a good goal. If your goal is to go to jujitsu 7 times a week, you're gonna fail and you're gonna feel bad about yourself and you're not gonna train as hard.
Yeah, and again, like I don't, like I'm okay with like the generic, like I want to get better at jujitsu. Like I'm okay with that, but at the same time, like you have to know that like it's just so vague and ambiguous. Like you have to be able to gauge your progress. So, like even if it's studying, like watching videos, studying, um, you know, you say you want to get better at like one aspect of it that you can take steps towards doing. Like I want to get better at leg locks. Like personally, like I'm talking to me personally. Like I want to get better at leg locks. Like I've seen my leg lock game improve over the past year, but I want to be even better at leg locks. So like what am I going to do that? Well, I want to put myself in positions where I'm going to improve. I want to learn new techniques or improve on the techniques that I already know. I want to roll with people who are already proficient. Like you want to put yourself in the position to succeed. You know what I mean? So if you're
Yeah.
not doing that, then it's like you said, it's just going to be discouraging, and at the end, it's going to be more detrimental.
If you don't have a plan, you're just hoping it happens.
Right.
If you don't have a plan to make it happen, you're just hoping it happens along the way. And the goal of, I want to get better at jujitsu, that's going to happen if you train at all. If you show up and train, you're going to get better.
Yep.
And all of these things really tie together. Like all these concepts we're talking about all sort of blended together. Making it measurable means that you're making a plan, and being specific means that you're making it measurable. Like it all works
Yeah.
together. I think having a plan, for me, like I'm a big data nerd, and like I know that this is a weird thing about myself, but like I track on a spreadsheet every round that I roll against who, how many minutes it was. So I can tell you every year how many minutes I spent sparring. I can tell you how many times I went and trained. I don't expect everyone should do that because that's, I know, a weird thing to do, but you should have some sort of log so that you can track how well you're doing. Because if your goal is, I want to go to jujitsu more, and you don't track that at all, what's going to happen is in 3 months, you're going to go, oh yeah, I wanted to train more. I wonder if I am. Like you need
Right.
to have some way of
Yep.
keeping track of where you are. And again, it's if you can see your own progress, that's encouraging.
I like I love the general goals that are measurable too. Like you see this all the time, like roll like 1,000 rounds, or roll X amount of hours. Like I like that. I don't think that that's the best, but like I like those goals as long as they're accompanying accompanying right
Yeah, you got it.
accompanying
Yeah, you got it.
accompanying hold on, as long as they are accompanying other goals, as long as
It's
they're
that
with
double it's
yeah,
it's that double EE sound and accompanying that gets you. I know.
accompanying, yeah, as
Yeah.
long as they're attached to other goals, or they're running parallel with other goals. I like those things. So
Yeah.
if that's what you're doing, if you're setting like I want to have 1,000 submissions, although I think that that's fucking bullshit when people do that, like, or if I want to roll 1,000 rounds, or I like that. Like keep like do that. Definitely do that. But make sure that you're setting more specific goals too when it comes to jujitsu, because if you're not, you're really not going to be able to accurately track your progress. Because say you roll 1,000 rounds, like I don't think, or whatever. I don't think anybody's going to dispute the fact that you're getting better, right?
Yeah.
But with that being said, like like you need to have something more, I guess, concrete. I don't know. That's not the best way to go about that. If you're going to have goals like that, make sure that you kind of come up with some other goals that you
Yeah.
can
And
track.
I know that we're not the average regular person who just goes to jujitsu as a hobby once or twice a week, right? Like
Right.
we're obviously, we do a show about jujitsu. Like we're a little more into it than maybe the average white or blue belt. It is what it is. But even if you're only going to jujitsu like once or twice a week, don't you want to be getting the most from it?
Yeah.
And if you can in some way track how well you're doing, it's going to make your jujitsu better. Because yeah, you can go full Justin Lesko nerd and you can look back and say, you know what, I'm getting Kimura'd a lot because I can see all the times I was tapped. I need to work on this Kimura defense a little bit more. That's going to make you better for sure. But if you just keep a log of, I trained 2 times this week, I trained 3 times the next week, I trained 1 time a couple weeks in a row, that's going to make you realize that you're not accomplishing your goal and you're going to train more. But if you don't have that log at all, everybody knows the weeks just blend together, and before you know it, months have gone by, and you can't look back and measure how well you've done or not.
Right. Again, you don't have to be that extreme.
Yeah, I know. I'm a nerd. I know. I don't don't do that.
I mean,
Don't do that. But
yeah. I think I think in your mind, you think if you just announced the fact that you're a nerd, like people would be like, oh, he already knows that he's a nerd, so we won't call him a nerd, but you're a fucking nerd.
I know. I know. I also think it's important to note before we move on to some like ideas for jujitsu goals that it's okay to fail at goals because like I said a few minutes ago, your goal should be slightly outside of what you think you already can accomplish.
Yeah, work outside your comfort zone.
So if your goal is to roll, 1,000 rounds this year and you roll like 800, like that's okay. It's okay to fall short. Just don't fall short by like, don't do 200 rounds and you didn't even try for your
No, I
goal.
mean
Like,
it's totally fine, but if your goal's 1,000 and you do hit 800 and not 1,000, just try harder, and then also unfollow the show and don't ever talk to us again.
that is a pretty steep punishment if someone
It's,
doesn't meet their goal.
it's tough love. It's tough. It's tough love, and it's extra motivation.
And if you do achieve your goal, let us know and we'll give you a special shout out.
Yeah, we'll allow you to continue to follow our blue. I don't even know our podcast, our world famous podcast.
But if you do want a shout out, I'm going to need to see a Justin Lesko style spreadsheet to prove.
Yeah, fucking nerd alert.
Also, sometimes there's a thing like a global pandemic or someone kicks you in the arm and breaks it and interrupts your goal. It's okay to pause your goal
And
and
now we're
pick it
blaming
up
that
at a
guy.
later time. I'm not blaming that guy. I'm just
Seems
saying,
kind of salty.
I mean,
Okay.
it's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I did, though. I was thinking if someone's looking for good ideas for jujitsu goals or jujitsu resolutions, we mentioned a few rolling X number of rounds or training X number of times a week. I think I came up with a few. I know you came up with a few as well.
Yeah.
I do think it is a good idea to look back and try to figure out if you can how many times you trained last year and add 20% this year. Just add more to it. And I'm sure you can estimate. I probably rolled twice a week. I probably rolled 3 times a week. Assume you did more than you did for the purpose of this goal. Assume you did 3 if you think it might be 2 or 3, and then add 20% and see how good your jiu-jitsu gets just this year.
Yeah. It's along those lines, but I like to set goals on like a more narrow scope or within a more narrow scope, I should say, and it's on a weekly basis. So whereas if you're going to do that and try to increase the amount of time you spend on the mats by 10, 15, 20%, I think it's more reasonable to break that down into how many times does this translate into me training per week. And it just breaks your long-term goal down into a short-term goal, and all of those short-term goals will eventually add up to where you want to be, but it just allows you to kind of, focus on the short term, which I find to be easier,
Yeah,
you don't
for sure.
want to get overwhelmed by, a big number.
Yeah, you make it more manageable chunks.
Yep. Yeah.
I think that one thing you definitely should do if you live in an area where tournaments are still happening, or assuming in the near future tournaments will be happening again, is you should pick a tournament, sign up for it, give yourself 6 to 8 weeks, and treat that time like a fight camp. Look at your diet and what you eat. I'm not saying cut a bunch of weight for a tournament. I'm just saying, fuel yourself appropriately, train hard, run, stretch, treat that like it is the biggest fight of your life, and see how good your jiu-jitsu gets. And accept the fact that you're going there with the intention of, I'm going to double gold. If you don't, you can still follow me on Instagram. Maybe you don't want to follow Mike anymore, but use that time, treat yourself like a pro athlete, and see how good your jiu-jitsu
Right.
gets.
And it's not, this is going to sound like, I don't want to sound like a douchebag, but like anything worth doing, right, is worth doing to the fullest, right? So if you're going to compete, like your expectation should be that you're going to win. Right? Like you would agree with
Yeah.
that. Like I know
Yeah.
that there's
Yep.
people out there that don't, and they're like, no, I just want to get in shape and do a tournament and do that. And maybe, for your first couple tournaments, that's fine. But as you progress, and as you become, you go through the beginning stages, and then you're an intermediate, and then, you get up to, purple, brown, and black belts. Like if you're doing a tournament or you're doing a super fight, like the goal is not just to get there.
Yeah.
It's how do I prepare myself to run through this fucking thing. Like you
Yeah.
said, we're going there with the expectation of winning double gold, or crushing whoever I'm fighting in a super fight. Like that's what it comes down to, and that's not an unrealistic goal,
No.
And again, that's a measurable goal. Like, did
Yeah.
you, and it's okay to kind of use one event to establish a few goals, like getting in shape, preparing yourself to the fullest that you believe that you could be prepared for an event might be one goal. But in the back of your mind, like you're not going there saying like, oh, if I place, like, no, like you're going there to win. And, if you don't, you know, yeah, placing, getting on a podium's fine, but like that should make you even hungrier.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's reassessing after a result. If you achieve a goal or you fail at a goal, reassess and make the next one. And like you said, you're going to win. I've never competed because I didn't think I was going to win. I've never done a super fight. I've never taken an MMA fight. If I sign up to do it, I intend to win and I intend to come home with hardware. But if I lose and I don't win, you can either take that as this is where I went wrong in the planning for this goal. This is where I went wrong in the execution. This is how I'm going to be better next time. And this is my new goal. Or you can go, oh, I didn't get it. Goals are hard. I quit jujitsu. In which case, you're going to quit anyway. You were just looking for an excuse.
Right.
But again, being measurable, if your goal is to have better cardio for this tournament, when your friend Justin makes you run sprints, if on week 1 you puke after the 6th sprint, if after week 2 you puke after the 7th, that's measurable improvement.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's why I say, like, treat that time like a pro fighter. I'm not saying quit your job and abandon your family. If the best you can do is 3 training sessions a week, make the most of
Yeah.
all the time you're on the mat and all the time you're not on the mat, and just see how much better you get.
I
And
like
just
it.
go fucking crush it.
Yep.
I think that a lot of people, we're talking to people who are competing and people who are doing super fights and all that, but there's a lot of people in jiu-jitsu who use jiu-jitsu as a tool for weight loss. So they're not at the position where they want to go compete. They're just trying to drop some kilos.
Yeah.
Unlike
Lifestyle
me,
changes.
I don't have the kilos to drop. So I'm not in, maybe other people. So they're trying to lose some kilos.
And now for our PSA, public service announcement. Cue the Sarah McLachlan music where the starving children from Ethiopia come on the screen. You can adopt Justin for just a penny a day. And that penny a day will go to feeding Justin and making him look not so emaciated. So.
But I think that if you're using jujitsu for weight loss, A, good on you. Like you picked the right thing to do for losing weight. But everything we just talked about with goals and everything,
Right.
jujitsu should be part of that plan for weight loss. And we're not going to rehash everything we just said, but
No, but that it comes with like a little bit of a caveat there. Like there is people who come in who are overweight, like they don't understand what they're getting into with jujitsu, right? So like you really need to crawl before you walk there because you don't want to have a fucking heart attack on the mats. You know what I mean? So with that being said, like don't push yourself too hard. You know, um, if you feel yourself becoming physically overwhelmed or mentally overwhelmed, like just scale it back a little bit. You'll eventually get there. You know,
yeah.
again, it's measurable goals, but you know, you don't want. The other thing too is if you're setting goals or if you're pushing yourself too hard, um, you know, beyond what's realistic, like it's it's going to produce more negative results than positive results. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah,
You
if
know,
your goal is I want to lose 100 kilos this year,
that's
I'm going to
220. That's 220 pounds. No calculator. You see that? No calculator.
that's part of the reason I say kilos is because I want to watch your face when you try to do the math really quick. So I was gonna say like I want to lose like 75 kilos and then watch your
It's
like wheels spin.
150. That's 165 pounds.
My boy's wicked smart.
It's wicked smart.
But if your goal is I want to lose 220 pounds this year, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. It can
Right.
be done. It for sure can be done. And I
But
know that it has been, but break it down into chunks like you said about training sessions. I
right.
want to lose 10 pounds this month. Make it manageable, because if you set things so high and so unrealistic, when you don't get there instantly, it's discouraging and you're going to give up. Another realistic thing is to not think that you're going to get your black belt if you're currently a blue belt or a purple belt and think, "Oh, I'm going to get promoted this year. I'm going to get my black belt." Probably not going to happen.
It's probably not going to happen. We're both brown belts, and we probably won't get our black belts this year.
I can say pretty confidently I'm not getting my black belt this year, because right now I don't know when I'm going to be able to train again because COVID is a thing. And like, even if I started training tomorrow, I don't think that in 1 year I deserve my black belt and should get it.
Hmm.
So I'm not putting that on my goal list of like, get my black belt this year. I need other things to happen. I might have it on my goal list that I want to go from a 2 stripe brown belt to a 3 or 4 stripe brown belt, and I can measure that by looking at my belt, and it's realistic, and I have a plan in place should COVID be done. So I
Yeah,
count that as a good goal.
I like it. Like another thing specific is improving in areas where you feel you need
Deficient.
improvement. Yeah,
Yeah.
like where you feel like you need improvement. If you can objectively look at your game, and I think that that's another thing too. Like goal setting yeah, requires a certain level of self awareness, and it requires about as much objectivity as you can possibly have when you know looking at yourself, right? So you need to objectively look at your game, see where you're lacking, and focus on those areas, right? So I think that that's a great way to improve. But you have to use this whole goal setting mentality that we have to do that. You know, so it's training with guys who are going to put you in bad positions or these bad positions. It's you know expanding your knowledge on these positions, you know, whether it's through drilling or, you know, video review or these online instructionals or whatever it is. But you have to set aside the time and you have to, you know, take the steps or you're not going to improve.
Well, I think a lot of goal setting is it requires a lot of like self analysis that can be hard to do sometimes, because you have to sort of admit like I'm bad at this
Yeah.
thing or I'm bad in
Oh,
this
yeah.
position, and that can be, I think that's a big reason why a lot of people quit jujitsu, is because they don't want to have to admit that they're bad at something, and everyone's bad at jujitsu when you're a white belt.
Yeah.
But I've told this story before on here, maybe. I don't know. I used to be really bad at half guard and I hated it. So I would pull bottom half guard every roll. When I was like a white belt, blue belt, I would start there as much as I could. And now I love half guard. It's become one of my favorite positions, but it was hard day in and day out to go to train and know I was going to start in a bad position, but I know that's what I needed to do to get better. And again, like I don't want to keep harping on nerd things, but just keeping a basic training log of like, today I felt good. Today I did this. Today I tried this or I liked that. I can go back and look and say like, oh, the notes start to get more positive about half guard. I've been doing it now for 6 weeks. It's good to look back and see that progress. And I think if you can be honest enough with yourself and look at your own game and look at how you could get better and you take the steps to do that, you'll get better at the things you're bad at. Like it's
Right.
just repetition is just how you get better. It just is what it is.
Hashtag agreed.
Do you have any, you kind of said, but do you have any more goals for 2021?
No, I mean, yeah, but not really any jujitsu related goals.
None you want to share?
I just want to get back, like, because there's so much uncertainty surrounding it, and with COVID and everything, the main thing is I just want to get back to a normal training routine. Like that's it. Like I want to
Yeah.
get back to training. I want to get back to normalcy, and once we get back there, I can focus on my game.
Yeah, I have a few. Obviously, COVID has like affected a lot of shit. Obviously, I've had to sort of transition some goals. The one thing I can work on is my fitness. I can't work right now on my technique. I can't work on my cardio in relation to sparring or my muscle endurance in relation to sparring, but I can run and work my cardio in other ways. I can lift and work my strength in other ways. I can log all that. You may be surprised to find out that I do have a very detailed workout and lifting log. I can
Oh, I'm very detail oriented. I have a log and a pocket protector to secure all my writing utensils.
that's a very good Justin Lesko impression.
Yeah.
Um I can have, I can and do have goals specific to what my heart rate will be at certain distances and speeds running and certain paces, and I can do the best I can.
E
And
equals MC squared equals I'm a big fucking nerd.
why do I feel like you've been practicing this impression? It seems to get better every time you do it.
All right, guys, we just wanted to take a quick break from the show to remind you about what's coming up this month on our Patreon account.
I took it last week. Do you want to take a turn reading the long paragraph on the script?
No. I'm gonna make a paper football instead.
Okay, I'll handle it. So we have a lot of different tiers. They start as little as $3. The white belt tier is $3 and it gets you early access to episodes and our monthly blooper reel. The blue belt tier is only $5 and it gets you all of that and our monthly Q&A episode. And for purple belts at $8 a month, you get all of that and access to our upcoming weekly leg lock instructional. Brown belt gets you a guarantee that your Q&A question gets answered. And if you want to submit your question via video, we'll actually play it on the episode and answer your question. Black belt gets you everything I just said, plus a shout out from us in every episode. So I assume that I'll be taking that for the near future.
The football making or the speaking?
The speaking.
Yes. Football making aside, you can find our Patreon account at patreon.com/thatjujitsupodcast. When you guys subscribe to it, it really helps us pump out more content. And as always, we really appreciate the continued support, and we're looking to put out the best product possible. And this is something that definitely helps us do that. So thanks again.
Like Mike said, thank you everybody who already supports us over there. I'll put the link below, patreon.com/thatjujitsupodcast. Go ahead.
And now, back to the show.
it's sort of a slow news time right now in jiu-jitsu and in MMA. Not There's no UFC fights happening now for I think another 2 weeks and whatever. There's
You want to give a shout out to our boys fucking Mason Fowler and Benji Silva. So Benji was dominating his match, right? It was, it was a tough loss, but Benji was on point because Benji's a fucking savage. And, you know, again, I don't know who Uncle Chael's going to throw in front of Mason Fowler to try and get that belt away from him.
well,
People were,
as we correctly predicted, who beats Mason Fowler? I don't think anybody.
I don't know anybody. I would love to see him fight Gordon Ryan. They were talking about Vinny Magalhaes.
Yeah, I'm in for that match.
I would definitely watch that, obviously. But anybody other than that, like, I don't know. And I don't even know if Vinny beats him. Like,
No,
him versus Keenan is the match to make. Or him versus Gary Tonin.
Yeah.
Match him up against one of those guys. But he's a fucking savage. And Benji's a fucking savage, too.
Yeah. That was a good event. That was a fun event. Unfortunately, for the fans of this show and jiu-jitsu and worldwide, really, Israel Adesanya is officially fighting Jan in March. So the fight that we've all wanted, that the people have been dying for, me versus Israel Adesanya at Submission Underground.
Yeah.
It looks like you're going to have to wait a little bit longer because he's going to focus on Jan, which I think he should. He's making the right decision, but
I mean,
that's
debatable. That's debatable.
Someday it'll happen. I tweeted at Submission Underground to make the fight happen, and they liked that tweet, which I think is just a confirmation that it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's a contract offer is what I think.
I think when they pushed that like button on Twitter, the way I read it was, listen, man, we have some insider info. The Izzy fight's going to get booked against Jan. We'll set this up for the springtime. We'll get back to you. And I might be getting a lot of info out of this, heart icon on Twitter, but I don't know what else it could mean.
It's like, how are you and your podcast partner so good at jiu-jitsu and so funny and so handsome?
Spreadsheets. It's all the spreadsheets.
Yeah. And how do you seem so cool, but deep down you're such a fucking nerd?
But I'm excited for that fight, even though it means that I don't get to compete against him.
Yeah. Izzy's going to be 2-division champ. For
sure. And I think he's got a good shot at defending both belts once he gets there. But we might be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. But a couple of things in jiu-jitsu and MMA news. Number one, BJJ Fanatics is donating $25,000 and setting up a fund to help jiu-jitsu school owners with relief during the pandemic. And I don't have much to say about that other than that's cool. Good on you guys.
Yeah. Bernardo Faria is just... I think it was like very early on when I was like, he is advancing the mission of this sport. Like,
for sure.
Crazy. Like, this is just further confirmation of that. He's great.
Also, I'm a law-abiding citizen. You're a law-enforcing citizen. We pay for our UFC pay-per-views.
Outstanding
gentlemen.
Well,
so someone commented on an Instagram post that they can't wait to pirate a fight, and Dana responded and said he's got a special surprise for people who do that or whatever. Let me read you the exact quote.
I know he's like, I got a special surprise for you motherfuckers.
The guy says, can't wait to pirate the fuck out of this. Thanks, Dana. I'm excited. And Dana says, and I can't wait to catch you. Got a surprise for you motherfuckers this year. I have some thoughts.
I do too. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, let me hear your thoughts first as the law enforcement officer of the show.
So, have you ever seen those Trunk Monkey commercials?
I don't like where this is going, but no, okay. I have not.
So this guy is like road rage. He's like the victim of road rage. There's a guy outside of out of his car. He's fucking screaming at him, and the guy's just calmly staring ahead. And the guy's screaming. So next thing you know, he just hits a little button on his car. The trunk opens, and this monkey gets out, and he's got a bat, and he walks up, and he fucking clubs the guy. So my thing is that Dana is going to enlist the help of retired UFC fighters to be his trunk monkeys to hunt down these pay-per-view pirates, namely a drunken BJ Penn. So he's going to pull BJ Penn out of local
He might
watering.
need the money.
Yeah, he's going to pull BJ Penn out of a local watering hole in Hilo, Hawaii, and he's going to drag him. And BJ Penn, if you're pirating the show, you're going to hear a knock on your door, and BJ Penn's going to kick your door down and beat the shit out of you, and then collect $65 from you.
Well, first of all, Dana, let's talk. How are you? If the company Disney, if every other sports league in the world can't figure out a way to stop their events getting pirated, how are you, Dana White in the UFC, gonna figure it out? Second of all, have you ever heard of a VPN? Do you know what a VPN is?
Yes.
Does Dana White know what a VPN is?
I'm sure Dana White doesn't know what a VPN is, but Dana White has $4 billion, and
yeah, and Disney has about $100 billion, and they can't stop people from pirating fucking Mandalorian off Disney Plus. It still happens. There's no way anything ever happens. What could potentially happen is Dana's internet goons get like a high level, like the person broadcasting, like the person streaming it, not the person who's watching it through their screen. You're not going to track down 1 million people who, it's just not going to happen. Also, it's kind of a shitty time when you're raising the price of the UFC pay-per-views to then get mad at people for wanting to pirate your shit. You're already forcing me to buy ESPN Plus and then pay a fee on top of that fee to buy the pay-per-view. You should be happy that 100% of people don't pirate your thing because you're putting us behind 2 paywalls to watch your fights. I think, Dana, you might be bluffing.
I don't think he's bluffing.
Oh, you think he's got the monkey?
I think he's going to enlist BJ Penn.
Let's hope that's the only fight that BJ Penn gets for the rest of his life.
All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. We put the links below to our social media accounts, so if you want to follow us individually or you want to follow the show on Instagram, feel free to do so. Just follow the links.
I'm also going to put a link below to our Patreon account. Subscribing to us on Patreon is a great way to support the show, and it helps us put out as much content for you guys as possible. And remember that your support on Patreon will make you as cool as Jim Culp. If you liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed. Say, how much is 65 kilos?
65 kilos is 130 plus 13 pounds, so it'll be 143 pounds.
Perfect way to say goodbye. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.